Hi everyone. Can everyone hear me okay? Well, welcome to the webinar working with AOD clients on problem gambling. I'm Ashley from Recovery Resources here in Cleveland, Ohio, and we are excited to offer this training opportunity. So here at Recovery Resources, we help people triumph over mental illness, alcoholism, drug and other addictions. Our services range from mental health and addiction prevention and treatment to services to support individuals in recovery, such as housing and employment. We also offer services to employers through our Employee Assistance Program. And finally, we offer trainings and education around gambling prevention and treatment, similar to this webinar. So just some general webinar housekeeping. To receive CEUs for this training, please keep the webinar open on your screen and engage in the polls. Also, after the webinar, you will receive an email with the webinar evaluation and post-test. That's important to remember. So approximately 1 hour after the webinar is over, you will receive an email with the link to the test to take your CEU opportunity. 1 hour. And if you would like the slides after the webinar, please email me at ayee@recres.org. I will send that in the chat right now. Is everyone able to see the screen? Are you seeing a presentation? Okay, good. Good. I had a question. So usually there's someone with me monitoring the questions in the chat, but it'll be just me, so sometimes I might not see your question right away. So I'll try to keep an eye on that. So I will answer all questions at the end. And during the webinar at any time, if there's a sound issue or any connection issues, please just let me know in the chat. I'll try to keep an eye on that as well. And if you have a question, you can also raise your hand as well. And I will try and keep an eye on that too. All right, so poll question 1. Have you ever participated in a gambling related training, such as a webinar, a training, or a conference? Anything like that? I'm seeing mostly yeses. Just good. No, that's okay. All right, so I had 90% yes and 10% no. Good. I'm just trying to see where everyone is and how familiar they are with, some gambling related things. Thanks for participating. Also, another quick poll. Where are you from? I'm seeing mostly Northeast Ohio and about 20 to 30% outside of Ohio. Wow, okay. This is for our own curiosity. Mostly Northeast. It's chilly here today. Thanks for joining us on this fall afternoon. All right, so what is gambling? Gambling is risking something of value on an event that's determined mostly by chance. The DSM-5 will say that's risking something of value in hopes of obtaining something of greater value. And then Gamblers Anonymous GA, they will say any betting or wagering for self or others, whether for money or not, no matter how slight or insignificant, where the outcome is uncertain or depends on chance or skill, constitutes as gambling. So problem gambling definition. So throughout this webinar, I will use two terms for those of you who may not be so familiar around gambling terms or in the field. I will say problem gambling and disordered gambling. So I might say problem gambler or disordered gambler. So problem gambling is when gambling starts to disrupt or damage your mental or physical health, your emotional, social, or spiritual health, work, school, or other activities, relationships, finances, and reputation. So problem gambling is not a diagnosis, but these people are starting to see some negative consequences due to their gambling habits. So if they're not careful, it could easily escalate to disordered gambling. So this is disordered gambling. So according to the DSM-5, it's a real diagnosis of behavioral addiction. One must meet at least 4 criteria to be diagnosed as a disordered gambler. So is often preoccupied with gambling, needs to gamble with increasing amounts of money in order to achieve the desired effect. Repeat unsuccessful efforts to control, cut back, or stop gambling, restless or irritable when attempting to cut down or stop gambling, gambles when distressed, chasing their losses, lying to conceal the extent of involvement with gambling. They have jeopardized or lost significant relationship, educational, career opportunity due to the gambling, or relies on others to provide money to relieve a desperate financial situation caused by gambling. So a mild diagnosis is 4 to 5 criteria. A moderate, you must meet 6 or 7 criteria, and then severe is 8 or 9 criteria. Okay, I'm getting more questions saying that they are not seeing the PowerPoint. Can everyone see the PowerPoint? Okay. I'm seeing no and yes, which is strange. Okay, well, I am going to close the PowerPoint and then open it. I'm getting yeses and nos. So just give me 1 second. Can everyone see the screen now? Okay, perfect. I'm getting a lot of yeses now. Don't see any nos. Okay, thank you. Sorry about that. We just went over some definitions. You didn't miss anything really. So nothing really to see here, but thank you. Okay, so just some statistics around problem gambling. About 6 to 8 million Americans meet criteria for actual gambling disorder, and then another 12 to 15 million have a problem with problem gambling. So we have those two terms right there. And then specifically in Ohio, I had a lot of Northeast Ohio folks here, and then some out of Ohio. About 10% of Ohio adults have some level of risk for problem gambling, and that number has since been doubled since 2012. So we are seeing an increase in our problem gamblers. Yeah. For more information, you can visit beforeyoubat.org. That is the Ohio campaign. Okay, someone's saying they can't see the PowerPoint. I'm seeing more yeses. All right. So some predictors of problem gambling, or things that might put people at a higher risk for developing a gambling problem, are having an early big win. So say you just gambled for the first time and you win big early on. Either that could be a lottery ticket, a casino, card games, what have you. We're also seeing a lot of availability for gambling. Um, I mean, we just had a big raid in Lorraine County of the illegal gaming cafes. I mean, they were everywhere. You can gamble online, on your phone. It's literally everywhere. So we just have more access to it. It's also more culturally acceptable. So it's embedded in our culture. Gambling is a way sometimes people bond through games. People are more accepting of it. I mean, you can go to a high school football game, they have raffles. Churches, there are bingos. You go to the grocery store, gas station, and there's lottery, there's scratch offs. So people are just more acceptable of it. I could probably be, at work scratching a scratch off and no one would really say anything, but I can't be at work smoking or doing anything else, right? And then there's a lot of gambling fallacies or superstitions. So, we all kind of have a superstition or have heard maybe a sport superstition. In some cultures, especially Asian cultures, and I'm Asian, so there's a lot of emphasis on luck and fortune. So it's really in everyone, it's embedded in the culture, it's everywhere. So it's just kind of hard to escape. All right, so here we work with a lot of people in recovery from gambling disorder. Obviously, we do treatment. So I just wanted to share with you some quotes that have really spoken to me, just because they're really impactful. So one person stated, "There's no way we can explain it to you if you're not living in our personal hell, because we don't understand it either." And then someone else said, "I'm sitting here trying to figure out how to tell my husband that once again we have a major credit card bill on the way. I swore to him that it would never happen again. I believed my vow, especially when I saw how hard he had worked to pay off the last debt I ran up. How can I tell him I've done it again?" So, why should we do screens with an AOD client? For those of you who may be new in the field, AOD stands for alcohol or other drugs. So, there are high rates of cross addiction. So, we're seeing a lot of comorbidity with AOD and problem gambling. There are very high suicide rates among people with gambling disorder. And we often hear that there's a lifestyle in which people engage in high risk, like drug, alcohol, gambling use. They're just used to this like high risk, like fun, thrilling lifestyle. And then gambling behavior is also more risky, of course, when someone is intoxicated. I see some questions coming in, and I will answer those at the end. Thank you for the question. Okay, hold on one second. I'm just getting the questions. Sorry. Um, so gambling and AOD cross addiction. So some things that we often see, especially people in recovery from an AOD addiction, a lot of times we hear them say, "Well, I'm bored now because I'm not using. And what's the harm in gambling? I'm not taking or using anything, so I don't see the problem." Um, Gambling can provide that rush, that high, associated to a drug or alcohol problem. because people with an actual gambling diagnosis, they achieve their high by betting more and more money each time. So then they do experience real withdrawal symptoms, because a gambling disorder acts the same way in the brain as a drug and alcohol disorder. And like we said before, it's more socially acceptable. So it's really easy for someone to kind of fall into this as someone in recovery. And then maybe they're able to gamble, in easier ways than they were able to use drugs and alcohol. All right, so here are just some of the comorbidity rates we often see, of people with a gambling diagnosis. There are very high rates of alcohol use disorder as well, at 73%. But just below it, 61% is personality disorder. And then some nicotine dependency, about 50% mood disorder, 41% anxiety disorder, 38% drug use disorder. And then the most important one I really want to point out here is that there's a 20% suicide attempt rate. So we see that gambling addiction has the highest suicide attempt rate, more than drugs and alcohol. Um, I also want to point out here that, people with gambling disorder, it's not just AOD issues. We'll also see co-occurring. There are also, this is mixed with mental health issues as well. So, it's not really just affecting, say, people with AOD issues, but people with mental health issues as well. So it's not really one-sided. All right, so suicide and gambling, as I said, highest suicide attempt rate, it's 1 in 5. Um, we just see a lot of it, so that's also why we have this initiative and why we do education and awareness. Here's just some stats we have around suicide and gambling. So unmanageable debt, psychiatric illness, usually depression. We see a lot of depression. In a Finnish study, they related debt to suicidal ideation. And then some social risk factors involved are unmanageable debt and unemployment. And so gambling was found to be predictive of suicide. And there's a really long one down there. I just won't read that to you guys. Okay, poll question number 2. My agency or in my practice integrates a gambling screen during the intake or assessment process. It's about 50-50 here. Yeah, it's about 50-50. Okay, see, 48% yes, 52% no. All right, so for those of you who have never seen the BBGS, or the Brief Biosocial Gambling Screen, this is a short screening tool used to determine if someone may be at risk for problem gambling or disordered gambling. So a person only has to answer yes to one of these questions to be considered at risk. And I would say this is probably the bare minimum tool you should use to screen. As you can see, it's not, it's not very expensive. So we should probably do more. So this is recovery resources assessment, and this is the first half of our gambling screen. So we do include the BBGS, but we also include some other questions based on gambling behaviors. So we'll ask specifically about lottery, scratch off, bingo, and raffles because sometimes people don't recognize them as gambling. They don't see that as gambling. That's why we ask those specifically. And then, as you can see, we also ask some predictors of problem gambling, such as how old were you when you first gambled? Um, for those on the phone, I'll read some of these off. So, have you done any lotteries, scratch offs, bingos, or raffles in the last 12 months? Have you ever played any casino type games like card games, dice, slot machines in the past 12 months? Have you ever done any sports, fantasy sports, online games, and animal racing in the past 12 months? And how old when you first gambled? How much money have you spent on gambling? So those are just some of the questions we ask. And then here is the second half of our assessment as far as the gambling portion. So in the second half of our agency's assessment, we see if clients endorse actual criteria from the DSM-5. So we ask them all 9 of the criteria. So, do you need to gamble with increasing amounts of money? Do you feel excited? Are you restless when attempting to cut down or stop gambling? Do you gamble when you're distressed? So we kind of just take it a step further, just to really see their behaviors and what they're doing around gambling. So screening, we have learned it how you ask the question. So we have learned you can't just ask someone, do you gamble? Or what kind of gambling do you do? We realize you need to be specific. So how often do you buy lottery tickets? How often do you play cards for money? Do you play the slot machines? Do you bet on sports, etc.? Um, and in Northeast Ohio, where we are, there's a lot of street dice games. They're really popular. Everyone does it. I mean, it's even in the high schools and middle schools. So anytime, I'm talking with someone, I specifically ask about dice because sometimes they don't think that's gambling. So, we just realized that when you ask these screening questions, people will endorse more probably gambling than if you just ask the screening questions. So, you get to know someone more than if you just ask them the BBGS questions. So, this little chart is how our screening and treatment process works. Starting at the top, um, after an assessment, do they meet gambling diagnosis criteria? So if they do meet enough criteria for gambling diagnosis, then they are referred to our gambling counseling. If no, then did they screen high risk on BBGS? If no, then obviously intervention is needed. Sorry, these boxes are covering half my screen. And then if yes, they need to be referred to gambling. So if they do not, if they did screen high on the BBGS, then they can be referred to gambling education, which I'll talk about in a couple slides. And then if they're not screened high risk on BBGS, then obviously there's no intervention needed. So, we can screen clients and we can make referrals, and that's the best we can do. But a lot of our clients who come in for mental health and or AOD issues, they don't have high motivation to address their problem gambling. So either they never thought of it as a problem or a potential problem. They believe that gambling can actually help them out of their current problems. So they think that if they win a lot of money, then they can be happier, or it can just fix all of their debt problems. So they think gambling is a way out. Or they think that, gambling, they know it is a problem, but they don't want to just give up all their fun just like that. I talked to a guy once who's in AOD treatment, and he said, you can't just take all of my fun away all at once. You got to leave a man something. So he just wasn't ready to address his gambling yet because he was addressing his AOD first. And some people feel overwhelmed by dealing with just, say, their AOD problem, and that's all they can concentrate on right now. Which is understandable. And then some people, they just want to do the bare minimum to achieve their goal. We get a lot of referrals from probation and DCFS, so Child Family Services. So, they don't really want to engage in anything extra or more than they have to. They're just trying to get by and make probation or DCFS happy. So more about our one-on-one education program. So this is a new harm reduction prevention class for those who are high risk or meet 2 to 3 criteria and don't have a diagnosis. It's a new program we started in April of this year, so we haven't had many clients, and we definitely haven't had enough clients to do any program evaluations on this. It's not evidence-based, but it's centered around harm reduction, prevention, and education. So it's a 3 one-hour classes, and we provide a certificate at the end because many of our clients are referred by probation. So it's kind of an incentive to show the probation officer. And our intake department refers these clients, and then we follow up with them to see if they would like to participate. And throughout the classes, clients are asked about their gambling through motivational interviewing. So, gambling discussion implementation. So we're going to switch gears here and kind of go back to screening. So we screen clients assessment, but we also screen them again once they are in group. So in their group therapy, we screen them every quarter, and that's about when we see some turnaround. So it's a new group every quarter. And how it works is first, I will do the discussion around problem gambling while their clinician observes me. And these discussions usually last only about 15 minutes. And then the clinician will do the discussion on their own while I observe and serve as kind of a backup. Then after the discussion, we hand out the BBGS for clients to fill out. So then moving forward, the goal is to have the clinician screen their group every quarter on their own. And during that 15-minute discussion, we kind of look out for clients who may be openly talking about their gambling habits to see if there are any red flags or things they're saying that, maybe we can adjust with them individually. Oh, here we go. Let's get going. Okay, so why do we re-screen clients during treatment? Because they've already been screened during assessment, right? But maybe their gambling behavior has changed during treatment. There could be cross addiction. We've noticed some people who said they've gone to AA and now all of a sudden they're buying tons of raffle tickets. Maybe during the assessment they weren't very honest with the assessor, or now they just feel more comfortable talking about their gambling with their counselor than with an assessor because they built rapport with their counselor and assessor. That's someone they don't even know. Maybe they've experienced assessment fatigue because the gambling portion on the assessment is near the end, so that's something that definitely could be an issue. Maybe they're on the pre-contemplation or action phase regarding their problems with gambling, and they're kind of ready to take it on. And then maybe they're just really ready, committed to just recovering as a whole and living a healthy lifestyle. So, what do these discussions in these groups look like? Well, we talk about how gambling can be a trigger for someone in AOD recovery because maybe they used to use while they were gambling. We talk about how gambling could be a coping mechanism and just how it's like any other addiction. Um, and it's important to note that these discussions are not based on statistics. We really just want to relate how gambling disorder is similar to AOD disorders. And, I think I talk about this later, but one of the barriers of, getting into these groups and talking with the clients is that, well, the clinicians, they can't bill for this. How do they bill for this? So that's why we talk about how, gambling can be a trigger, a coping mechanism, another addiction. So really it's just relating it. So then, from there on, moving forward, the clinician, they can, use their time wisely. So clients that screen high risk, we follow up with them, or the clinician, they will follow up with them during an individual session. And then, if they do maybe need some more help around their gambling, they're referred to gambling counseling. Um, some limitations around this is that not all of our clinicians are gambling counselors. So not all clinicians feel comfortable talking about gambling. I think I talk about this later. So, brings me to my next poll. I currently feel confident in my ability to engage my AOD clients in conversations regarding their gambling behavior. Seeing 70% yes, 30% no. Okay, very good. Mostly yeses, some no. And that's fine because, we're not all gambling counselors, we're not all gambling specialists. Um, so that's why we attend webinars like this. So yeah, here's where I talk about some of the barriers actually, implementing a further screening process. So I guess the biggest thing we encountered was lack of counselor buy-in. So the counselor, they're just like, why am I doing this? I don't know anything around gambling. I haven't had, extensive training in gambling. I just don't feel comfortable talking about this with a client. And then so it's, the next step I took with that is just building relationships. So maybe this person, they just don't know me. So maybe they just don't trust me that much, or they believe in what I have to say. So it's really about building relationships. And then just talking about, the importance of gambling integration into therapy group, because I mean, as a clinician, I feel like maybe you would want to help your client to the best of your ability. And, if that includes gambling, then why not? Maybe you should be the best you can be. And then we've also gotten, well, gambling's not included in my curriculum again, so I don't know anything about it. Like, I have this curriculum I have to get through, so that's why we kind of do gambling trainings to have them more familiar, more comfortable about talking about gambling. Because a lot of times it's just that comfort level. They are not ready to do it. So that's why we do the demonstrations and why I do the shadowing and why they'll watch me have the discussion and then I'll watch them have the discussion. Some counselors, I've done this with 2 or 3 times just to make sure they are completely ready to do this on their own. And then again, the prevention billing treatment. So I can't do prevention when I'm billing for treatment. And that's why we frame these as discussions, and why we talk about how it could be a trigger or a coping mechanism in cross addiction. Because then it's just like you're talking about any other addiction, and we're not just sticking specifically to gambling, but just know, I can hear people say your people, places, and things. It's really just, bringing it in the circle. And that's just some of the barriers we encountered. So maybe if you wanted to, implement a screening process or something like this, these are some things you need to consider and how you can overcome these. Okay, so building community partnership. So we go to like local residential inpatient treatment centers for AOD. And what we do there is we'll go there about every other month. That's when they see turnover. And we will do a gambling presentation, kind of just an intro. What is problem gambling, some statistics, some responsible gambling tips, things like that. And we will screen the residents using the BBGS. And then we let them know afterwards who has screened high risk and maybe what they can do, and maybe if they can refer them to our agency. So, the problem gambling efforts in Cuyahoga County. I think I took out my slide. Where's my slide go? Okay, so some problem gambling efforts in Cuyahoga County. We have the Cuyahoga Problem Gambling Coalition. The CPGC, our vision is a community free of problem gambling. Our mission is to create a space for people and organizations to work collaboratively to resolve the issue of problem gambling through awareness, education, and resource cultivation. Okay, I'm missing a slide from here. So, when I was talking about the gambling education classes, the one-on-one prevention harm reduction classes, I don't know what happened to the slide. I may have skipped over it. Sorry, everyone. Okay, I think I skipped this slide. I did. So this is back to the one-on-one education program. I realized that we never talked about this. So again, this is the program where clients, they are not diagnosed with a gambling disorder, but they may meet 2 or 3 criteria, or they screen high risk on BBGS. Okay, so what our classes have generally been looking like is the first session, we offer pre-tests, just an intro to problem gambling, some current stats, triggers, coping, stopping addictions, we talk about that, some warning signs of problem gambling, and then responsible gambling tips. And then during that, this is all conversational. During that, I kind of see where their behaviors lie and kind of how they think. So the second session is revolved around values and goals. So, how does gambling get in the way of values, of what really means to you? And then some goals they want to achieve, by the third session, by we're done. And these are achieved through activities. So it's not just me talking to them the whole time. And we also address some gambling fallacies because I've seen a few people with a lot of gambling fallacies. So we talk about that. We also debunk any kind of myths and things like that. They might think that revolve around the casinos. So I get asked about that a lot. So we just debunk those myths. Then the third session is a review. So we'll go over again some more responsible gambling tips. Maybe anything specifically they want to ask me. And then there's a post-test evaluation. Okay, sorry, I had to jump through that. Okay, so now I'm going to go and answer the questions that I have in the question box. So let me pull these up. I'm scrolling. Okay, so I can email you the PowerPoint after the webinar. Is there a category of social gambling? Yes, so we categorize, people who gamble. There is what we call a social gambler. So, maybe they will just gamble at a fresh fry or a fundraiser. Or, maybe it's someone's birthday, so they want to go out to the casino. Yes, there are people who just, gamble on social occasions. Hope that answered your question. Scrolling through some more. Are there more men or women with a gambling disorder? So what we tend to see here is that it's kind of even. What we tend to see is that we see more younger men, with a problem. And then as women age, we see older women starting to kind of catch up. So we see younger men with a problem, and then we see more older women with a problem. So it's kind of even. Did your organization go outside of Cuyahoga County for the education at facilities? So right now, our grant only covers us doing Cuyahoga County for education and like inpatient residential, things like that, any kind of prevention is for the county, but we do professional trainings outside of Cuyahoga County. So if your facility was just more interested in anything related to gambling, we could do professional trainings. Let me see if I have any more questions. Is your gambling class separate from the AOD class? So our AOD is typically, group therapy, individual therapy. I am not a clinician. I'm just gambling prevention. So I don't really have, the dropout rate of those. But as far as our gambling classes, the individual ones, I haven't had anyone drop out yet, but I haven't had many clients for that. I've had less than 5, so I can't really, provide you any data with that. I haven't been able to do any like program evaluation for that. I don't have enough data. Okay, I don't see any more questions. Let me look in the chat box. Okay, so I do have some more things. So, new news. So Recovery Resources has been acquired by Metro Health, and that's really all I can tell you. We just received the news, and that's, yeah, we just wanted to let everyone know and all of our partners know. But I really can't tell you anything else because, I don't know, as the lower level, I guess, employee, not high up there, I wouldn't really know all the in and outs, but just to let you know. And then, so we do have 3 locations. Main office, Chester Avenue, Cleveland. Our Lakewood is on Detroit Road in Lakewood, and then Old Brooklyn Parma office on Pearl Road. And all of our gambling services come at no cost. They are covered through a grant. So anything related to gambling comes at no cost to a client, and they don't need health insurance. And that's all I have. I'm going to send out my email in case anyone wants the slides. And if anyone has any last minute questions, please feel free to ask. And then again, you will receive your post-test with the link approximately 1 hour after this is over. So around 2 o'clock, you'll receive that to receive your CEU. Okay, well, if no one has any questions, I'm gonna end this a few minutes early. All right, well, thank you, everyone. I hope you have a wonderful weekend and enjoy this nice fall weather. Okay, thanks, everyone. Bye.